Hi there, this is Lou from Diamond Weapon, and this is inside the mix of our latest single, Heaven in the Cold Clouds. So let's hop to it right now. What you're looking at right now is the session that we recorded for Heaven in the Cold Clouds. Most of it done at Lynx Music in Toronto. A lot of it done in the live room there, especially the drums and bass we all recorded in there. And we did the vocals in their isolation booth. So the guitars are mostly, well, you know what? Let's listen to the song a little bit, and we'll go through everything, and I'll talk about it. So here we go, where the hard part basically comes in. I'm pretty proud of it. You know, this is my first foray ever into doing a record front to back in terms of like producing, mixing, and then Scott Middleton from Cancer Bats actually mastered this for us, which I will refer to here. So if you go to the Mixbus channel here, you'll see I've got a little instance of Ozone here, basically trying to capture what Scott did. So, you know, minimal EQ on the bass, a little bit of a, you know, turn down on the high ends. It's as close as I can get to this without actually having his master, because he did such a good job, but this is a close approximation for the purposes of this video, and it'll still show you sort of what I did. So let's get into it, and we're going to start with the drums. So here's what the drums sound like on their own. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to mute everything else, because I think that just makes life easier. So just give me a second here. There we go. So here's the drums. So the drums were recorded at Lynx Music in the live room, and you'll see on the drum bus here, what I kind of did and wish I had done differently when I recorded it is I put the room mics maybe about 10 feet back from the drum set, and the room was just so much bigger than that, but I had the console desk in the middle of the room, which I think was a mistake. I should have pulled it further back and had the room mics in front of me, maybe about 20 feet back. So what I did to compensate for that was add this Dragonfly reverb, just very little. Like you can see 3% right here is all I needed, but that just gives it a little bit more extra reverb, a little extra room sound to the sound. It's very subtle. If I take it off, and then when I throw it back on, it's incredibly subtle, but it just gives that little bit more atmosphere that I was looking for, that was really missing. So I just added it at the very end of the drum bus chain to do it. Other than that, you know, SSL compression, just doing about, I think, about 2 to 3 dB of compression. Not much. And then the Warmy here. I should mention a lot of the stuff here, including basically the template that I formulated to mix things. A lot of it is from Jordan Valeriot. I got stole a lot of things from him, or I shouldn't say stole. I learned a lot of things from him. And one of them is this Eddie, I'm sorry, I never know how to pronounce it. If it's, I call it Kive. It might be Kiev. I call it Kive. Kive Audio, their Pultec emulation sounds great on the drum bus. I even had the drum bus preset there, and just tweaked it from there. And just a little bit of post on that. Just a little bit of a low pass filter on the top. I think the high resonances were a little too high, so I ended up just cutting them out completely, and the mix sounds a little bit better there. So drums, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I did is pretty typical of what you would do. The one thing that I'll point out here, I've got all my snare. Whoops, it's one of my least favorite things about Reaper is using the rolling on the mouse. Doesn't really work, but on the snare here, you'll see there's two snare tops here. It's basically a clone of each other. If I mute this one, or actually if I solo this one, you'll hear the drums. And the hi-hat is basically almost as loud, if not potentially louder than the snare drum itself. And I did everything possible. I mean, I set it up so the snare mic, I used an SM57. I have it pointing away from the hi-hat, trying to get all the drums. But I just, so much hi-hat bleed on there. So I actually did the Bo Burchell trick, where I was like, take the snare track, duplicate it, but on the second one, have a compressor, basically as fast as it can go, with the highest ratio it can go without being a limiter. And then on this last one, just no processing, except just taking out all the high end there and inverting the phase. And what happens is you'll see when I do it, pretty much all that hi-hat stuff is gone. You know, a little bit of it, but a little bit of his bleed is okay. The downside of that is you lose a lot of the snare top end. So what I did is I just threw in a sample there, and that just adds a lot of the top end that was missing. The snare sample I use in this scenario is from the Get Good Drums Modern and Massive set. Famously, I submitted a mix review early on in the mixing process to Glenn Fricker on this, and he said our snare drum sounded a lot like the snare drum from Saint Anger, which, you know, it's probably one of the worst things you could say to the band, to a band. I don't think it's that bad. But I did just bring it down in the mix. It was very, very loud when I did that, and I brought it down just to even it out. But I like the way the snare sounds. So overall, I mean, the drums, I think with that little extra kick, added from the reverb, a little bit of the ambiance, sound particularly good. Let's go to a later sequence in the song. Pretty good. Like, I was happy enough with it to want to release it on a record. So, pretty happy with that. Let's move on to bass. So, the bass, and we actually recorded the bass and drums at the same time. Yeah, so what we did, and we just cleaned up whatever we needed to clean up. So the bass in the intro is just the SansAmp plugin here. This is a free plugin by TSC Audio. I can't believe it's free. It's one of my favorite plugins to use on bass. It sounds exactly like a SansAmp. It's terrific. So on the intro sequence here, it's just the SansAmp, but when all the instruments come in, notice this track here called Bass Dirty. I have this No Amp plugin by Mokafix. And that's just, if I solo it out on its own, I just realized I gotta take this off. If I solo that on its own, you know, just a lot fuzzier, giving it a lot of definition, and I have a low-pass filter here, so all the high-ended out is just basically distorting the low ends, and the more higher frequencies of the bass are coming through the cleaner Sans amp, and they create a blend that sounds like this. You know, just enough girth, but also just enough definition on there. In terms of processing, I actually have one. There was a little bit of tuning stability issues. A little retune there, polished it up, really great. But I have two compressors on here. So I have the CLA 76 on here twice. This first one is not doing much, just I think just taming a little bit. I think I did about 3 to 5 in compression. You know, just like an initial thing, and then the second one here, I'm really capping it out. I think I'm doing like 10 to 20 dBs of compression. And I'll actually go back to the drums in a second. One of the important things on mixes, for me, especially, I got to use like the Universal Audio X8, I believe it's called, or X8P, for the drums and the bass. But using saturation just to create a lot of that analog feels important. So on the bass, I use the Head Crusher. It's kind of like a I can't remember what the name of the plugin is. Not a distressor, but the decapitator. It's like the discount version, but I kind of like it. I kind of like the way that it sounds, especially on the strings instruments. On guitar and bass, I think it sounds really good. It's very subtle. If I do it here and I take it off, give me a second. Just gives that extra energy, you know, a little extra oomph, a little bit extra presence, which I really like. For the drums, I actually prefer to use... where is it? Do I have it on the individual channels? I guess... Yeah, I do, yes. So any of the channels that I want to saturate, I use the soft tube... Oh, where'd you go? It doesn't want to load for some reason. But I use the soft tube saturation knob. There we go. Just because, one, it's one knob. I like the way it sounds on drums. I decided to use that one. And for me, it sounds terrific. So that's my go-to saturation for drums. So that's that. Let's move on to guitar. So we'll move on to a different sequence in the song here. So for my guitar, I ended up using the Amped Oracle, which I think is the best sort of capture of a Orange Rock Reverb amp, which is the amp that I actually use on stage. I think it sounds great. It sounds accurate. I plug into this through my audio interface. It sounds like an Orange Rock Reverb. So this is what I use on the record. I have a preset I actually stole. This song is the Sonic Drive. I stole it from the Sonic Drive YouTube channel. I think it sounds really, really good. It sounds pretty much what I use in real life, so that was the tone I went for this record. So using my guitar amp here. And like the bass, I've got the head crusher for saturation on there. I think it sounds really good. This one I have in British mode, and in bass I used the vintage, but I used the British on the rhythm guitars here. I think it's the one that sounds the best. The interesting thing is I use the CLA 3A on guitars here. I think just about everything else on this record I used the 1176 plugin. Minus the vocals, the initial, but I'll get to that soon enough. But I'm not doing much. I'm just doing maybe, I think, 3 to 5 dBs of compression. But it just gives a little bit uniformness to it. I know, like, distorted guitar is pretty compressed to begin with, but just giving a little bit more uniformity to it. The C4, I think everyone knows by now. This song does have quite a bit of chugs in it. Let me get to it, like a chug sequence here. Well, I think I gotta go to this one, but you know, I'm chugging the guitar here, and you can see what the C4 is doing. Just taming that mid-range build-up when you're, you know, palm muting on the guitar. So that helps it from, like, overpowering the mix. And I learned that, I think it was from Jordan Valeriot as well, and it just, you know, tames those that mid-muddy build-up when you're chugging on the guitar. Sifa, I mean, this is, you know, I had the Archetype Nolly on this. I processed it. I processed it out, so I don't have to use the plugin anymore. I think it's very similar. British on the head crusher, 3A on the for compression, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it on guitars. Let's move on to vocals. So, let's see if there's a good part where Seif and I are going. Yeah, this is a good part for that. I'll build a house on this cliff. It will be sturdy. The stone is not set. But this is my fortress. This is where I lay. Here I am, owner of reality. So, for this, we rented the ISO booth at Link's Music. And through the control room, we actually got to use the API preamps in there, which I was super stoked on. And I liked them better, like, because we had an option for a couple Neve plugins, but I thought the API ones actually sounded better for vocals. So I ended up using them, and they sounded terrific. In terms of setup, actually, so we ran an SM7B through a distressor to record the vocals, and then into the API. So the distressor was done, so it's got about maybe 2 to 3 dB of compression, not very much, but just going in as I'm recording, and everything with the 7B, just which I think I like for hardcore vocals, and I think it's very universal. So in terms of my vocals here, so again, I use the Kive audio plugin here again. The tape face is the one I like for saturation on vocals. I think it's the one that sounds best. I'll show you what it's like without it and with it. I'll build a house on this mountain cliff, and it will be sturdy. The stone is not set, but this is my fortress. This is where I lay. Here I am, owner of reality. So again, it's subtle, but it just provides a little bit of that grittiness, that sort of tape warmth there that you get through modern recordings. So with the original distressor, and then on top of that, I got an 1176. This time the blue version, doing quite a bit. I think, again, like 10 to 20 dB of reduction.
I'll build a house on this mountain cliff, and it will be sturdy. The stone is not set, but...
And, you know, EQ, a little bit of extra EQ there, just a little bit of that sort of like mud buildup in the vocals. De-esser, getting rid of those sounds, limiting it. Now, I did something, I think Sifa's settings are very similar. Yep, exactly, the same setup with the tape face. But what we have, I have these at the end here going out, so I have a little bit of delay. I have the kilohertz delay here. It's super simple, but it works big. Works well enough for what I'm doing with vocals. And then room reverb. So I can't even remember what reverb I used to use, but I just discovered before we started mixing this album this D reverb, and I wish I had it before. It sounds terrific, and I think I have. Yeah, it's just my vocals going through it, and I think the delay is more so Sifa. And Sifa's getting a lot of the vocal doubler, too. So I have the Waves doubler here for the gritty vocals. So if I throw them here, give me a second.
On this mountain cliff, the stone is not set.
And if I mute them,
This is where I lay,
just so it gives a little extra energy.
owner of reality.
So yeah, Sifa's going through the delay, I'm more so going through the reverb, and he's getting a lot of the doubler, and that's what leads to that. So overall, I think this is what you're getting.
I'll build a house on this mountain cliff, and it will be sturdy. The stone is not set, but this is my fortress. This is where I lay. Here I am, owner of reality.
And as I was playing that, it just shows you, like, I had to record this album with help from Marco and Zach Haddon, who did a little of the vocal engineering. I probably listened to it like close to 100 times while mixing it. And we just filmed a music video for this on Sunday. I probably had to listen to it extra 40 times to it then. But I can still listen to the song and actually just bob my head and I enjoy it, which I'm actually pretty proud of. So I'm very happy with how this turned out. Scott did a fantastic job with the mastering on this, and I can't wait for you guys to all hear the album. We're very proud of it, and we hope you enjoyed as much as we do. But I guess I hope this was a little bit of an illustration of what we had to do to get the Diamond Weapon sound on this album, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you like this and you want to see future stuff, we're really trying to experiment with a whole bunch of stuff on this channel, so let me know, and I would love to show you guys more of sort of like behind the mix stuff we tend to do, and feel free to like and subscribe and do all the things that the other YouTubers say to do, and I don't know how to end videos, so I'm just gonna